Len Elmore was an English major here at the University of Maryland. He also played a little basketball. He is still Maryland's all-time leading rebounder. His career is filled with many standout credits like this. He played in the NBA and then received his law degree from Harvard Law School. After basketball, Len has had a wide-ranging career as an attorney, a television sportscaster, an educator, and an advocate. Currently, Len is a senior lecturer at Columbia University and the co-chair of the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics. All that started in the Department of English here in ARHU. It's an impressive list of accomplishments which are all topped off by his membership on the University of Maryland Board of Trustees. And every time I walk into one of those meetings with all the trustees, I am so proud to see Len, because you can always find him. He's easy to spot, but just to know that he's our alum is just really wonderful. He is joined today by his equally talented and accomplished wife, Gail Elmore, who is also an alum of ARHU. Gail received her ARHU degree in French and Spanish, along with a BS in Business Administration. She and her former colleague co-founded Wexia LLC, a company focused on helping educate women navigate finance. Prior to this, Gail spent more than 20 years on Wall Street, working for Bank of America in emerging markets, and then another 10 years as EVP for a Latin investment firm. Gail, where are you? There you are. Illustrious. Gail is passionate about women taking control of their financial future. She wants to help them feel comfortable using their voices and their pocketbooks to make change. So definitely try and find Gail at that table over there, if you can. But now I'm so excited to bring Len up to hear from him on his career insights and his advice for us. So please join me in welcoming Len Elmore.
Adjustment here. Dean Shonican, thank you very much for that introduction. And thank you all. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you here today. And I hope that when this is all over that you find some value in it. I know it feels a little like speed dating, but you got to think more about being involved and asking the right questions. When I was asked to speak to you today, I was kind of directed towards giving you a little bit of my story, my background, and then maybe adding some advice. And within the time period that I have, hopefully I can do that. Just to be able to start, I grew up in New York City, Brooklyn and Queens to be exact. I'm the oldest of 4 children, born to people I call strivers in post-World War II America. My mother was born in Louisiana, earned a scholarship to Southern University, but couldn't accept it because her family was too poor to undertake the expense of college. So ultimately she moved to New York City with her sister, my aunt, to work as an office cleaner and send money home to support the family. My dad was born in New York City. He was a Harlem resident, Harlem native. Dropped out of school in the 10th grade, joined the Army during World War II and was stationed in Japan in the occupational forces. He returned to the United States to become a truck driver for an appliance company. And after their 4 children were born, and while we lived in public housing, my parents decided they wanted more. So they took the civil service tests in New York City, which they passed, and that enabled them to accept city jobs. My father for the Department of Sanitation, a garbage man, as he would call it, and my mom was a clerk. We moved from public housing to a small home in Queens, kind of a suburban setting. So it was based on their experiences that they placed a large emphasis on education. My father and his friends in our small home built a library downstairs. That library consisted of maybe a 6-foot-long shelf extension with bookcases at the top. The shelf was the desk, the bookcases held books. First books were Bible stories and a set of encyclopedias that they went into debt to be able to purchase. Now, I relate all of this for a reason. You know, my parents' dedication and their dream for us never left me. You know, I was driven to compete in school, both academically and in sports, and through that combination, I got an opportunity to attend a parochial school. That school is called Power Memorial Academy, which is famous for having an outstanding basketball program and its history. And that legacy included producing a real famous basketball player, not me. It was a gentleman by the name of Lou Alcindor, now known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, I followed him 5 years later, which invited comparisons until the first day of practice, and then they stopped comparing us. But again, while flattering, I certainly couldn't live up to his legacy, but I forged my own path. But during that period of time, sadly, as we grew into adults, you know, I lost my 2 younger brothers, and despite the sports successes of their own, their demise was related to a scourge of drugs that plagued our nation in the late 70s and the early 80s. You know, I have a sister who currently lives in Louisville, Kentucky. She survived and has a fulfilled life. But I lived with what they call survivor's guilt, which also took a toll. But that part of my life is a story for another forum. I always wanted to be a lawyer, way before I had a desire to be a professional athlete. Although, as a child, I thought I was going to play for the New York Yankees, that I kind of outgrew that. But I would watch TV lawyer shows, most prominently Perry Mason. And believe it or not, I still watch Perry Mason, the reruns. I probably have seen every single one of them. But growing up in the tumultuous times of the 60s, where the civil rights movement was in full bloom, the war in Vietnam had many protests, you know, I wanted to be part of that social change. I wanted to be part of the parade of change that was more than just sitting there and watching. I didn't want to be a bystander. I wanted to be in the parade. I wanted to have impact. And despite my basketball success, you know, I maintained that dream. I was drawn to this university for a lot of reasons. Most prominently, the access to Washington, D.C., the seat of power. But more importantly, access to alumni. I could name several people whose names are actually engraved in the wall there. Senator Joseph Tidings, who was a U.S. Senator. Prominent lawyer Jack Heisey. Those are names that I can read off that wall, but I had access to them. I was able to pick their brains. Now remember, when I entered this university, it was the fall of 1970, when I found out really what tumultuous life was really about. Protests against the war, student clashes with law enforcement, tear gas flying across the mall. You know, establishments on Route 1, now called Baltimore Avenue, remember, they had only been desegregated 5 or 6 years earlier than when I got there. And I was a distinct minority. I was black, and I was an athlete. So I had to learn how to adjust to life that was different from where I came. The prior spring of 1970 set this campus on fire, and also throughout the nation. Demonstrations, classes were shut down, students were killed, many injured in protests and clashes. Maintaining focus was really difficult. But when I got here, basketball, some interest, was a settling factor. But there was also my involvement in the surrounding community. You know, I started an after-school program in Seat Pleasant here in Prince George's County and spent time speaking to and sharing with young people. Certainly my visibility as a basketball player on what was at the time the most successful Maryland basketball teams ever, that helped in the successful community outreach. But the responsibility that I felt in giving back motivated me to balance not only my studies, but my outreach in the community. It was part of the responsibility I thought that I had. Now, again, I speak of always wanting to be a lawyer, to be in the vanguard of change. And despite those other successes that I spoke of and the distractions that I encountered, I was fortunate enough to pursue a 10-year career in pro basketball. But after I retired, I realized that I had a dream that was unfulfilled. But I also found out that things don't always go as you might plan. You know, yes, I was fortunate enough to go and get through Harvard Law School and become a lawyer. But when I finally became a lawyer, I eschewed big law firms and the money that it took, and I continued my quest to be part of change in the community and in our country. I found out while I did my part, the world didn't move with the swiftness that I desired, and that I was only one person, despite others who thought like me. What I learned was flexibility was important, because life comes at you hard. You know, starting a family, paying bills, changing opportunities, and outlook when things didn't fit the idealistic box that I erected. While I had a plan, that plan, as I desired, wasn't always feasible in the moment. The key is learning to adjust. And adjusting doesn't mean abandoning dreams, goals, and values. What it means is being prepared for change. That preparation includes fortifying oneself with the breadth of knowledge and skills, the kind of which you're getting in arts and humanities. It includes having a career and a life plan that can embrace change and provide off-ramps, alternative paths that will help you get to where you ultimately want to be. What I found is that being rigid in your career plans by ignoring alternative paths or shutting off opportunities that may not directly deliver your goals, but can be a part of the path, the journey, by being too rigid, it's a mistake, one that could doom accomplishing that dream. So, as you heard, I've worn many hats. I've been a lawyer for the government. I've been a private practice lawyer. I've been an advisor for young, inexperienced pro athletes. I've led organizations that have helped athletes less fortunate adjust to life after the game. You know, I've run companies that have been involved with education technology in democratizing test preparation, standardized test preparation. I've also been a network TV commentator, not only analyzing games, but providing commentary on the world of sports. And I've been blessed enough to be involved with organizations that continue to help youth. I've been guided and helped educators provide for young people as well. Currently, I teach budding practitioners in the business of sport, many of whom might assume the same responsibility of helping athletes, helping others involved in sports to properly and morally use their platforms to be agents of good and of principle. And I will admit, in my life's work, I've been able to do good and do well. But there's a common thread in that life's work. And that common thread is shared with the goals and interests that I had while I was in college and after basketball. And that thread has a lot to do with being of service. You can call it karma, reciprocity, reaping what you sow. But what I have found is that good intentions followed by good acts result in life's blessings. And those blessings aren't necessarily measured in financial terms. When you take a moment, look around you. Your family, your friends, peace of mind, having a purpose. Those are the things where you ought to place your value. Now, each of you, and I'm speaking to you students, each of you are going to have a chance to have impact in your own way. Some are going to be more impactful than others. Some are going to be more recognized for their contributions than others. However, with commitment and with effort, each of you, every single one of you, can have a positive impact if your objective is to have a positive impact. And it should be. Otherwise, why are you here? And this is an institution of higher learning. Why else did you undergo the arduous experience of matriculating at this prestigious university, if not to learn more? And that results in contributing more. As the late, great novelist and humanist Maya Angelou once stated, when you learn, teach. When you get, give. And each of you will create that impact in various ways, none identical. The only common element that I can ask of you today, and it's a vital ask, is whatever you do, understand that central to that effort and to that impact must be truth. Hear me. In an age of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Now, that statement, that's not mine. That's attributed to the author Eric Blair, otherwise known as George Orwell, who wrote the visionary novel 1984. Truth is defined in many ways, but I like it best when we define it as actuality. In other words, what's real. And if we apply Orwell's statement to today, an age where disinformation, misinformation, and deceit through lies, propaganda, and manipulation are all too dominant, your task, your upcoming task, your crucible, and that of your peers and others in the next generation of leadership is to seek and disseminate truth, and then live it. So I'm asking you to perform that revolutionary act. Seek and live the truth. Again, in the backdrop of what we experience today, that's a daunting challenge. A challenge that I'm almost ashamed to say that those of us of my generation, charged with guarding the truth, those of us before you, have failed to prevail. Look at where we are today as a nation and as a government. But the battle is a continuum. And now, it's your turn. Finally, I'm going to leave you with these words to draw upon in your times of doubt as to whether you can make a difference. The great novelist, playwright, and human rights activist James Baldwin motivated me with these words. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. So if there's anything you got to remember when you look back on this moment, those are the words. Remember, the words about spreading truth and about facing the need and challenge to bring about change for the better. I urge you to use your earned degrees, your educational authority, developed through your mastery of arts and humanities subjects, and your preparation for the leadership in this world you'll inherit. I ask you to use it to face the need for truth, for understanding, and for mercy. And when you face that, deliver. A world of fairness, of equity, and literally of survival for all of humankind depends upon it. So the words that I'd leave you with today is commit to making a difference. Thank you all, and good luck.